Welcome to the Great Man Within podcast. Every episode designed to help you discover and live the great man within you. Hello, my brother. I wanted to remind you that people are seeking your leadership right now. During times of uncertainty and turmoil and fear, people crave leadership. So they will be looking at you and how you show up on a daily basis, because you will serve as a model for how they choose to go about their business, especially during these times of turmoil. So it means that your commitment to fortifying your inner foundation is more important now than ever before. Because here's a truth. Great leaders adapt first. Great leaders during times of crisis and turmoil and uncertainty are the ones who figure it out first. They adapt to the new normal first so they can stabilize, set a new vision, and clear the path for others to follow. So if you want to be a great leader, you have to make a commitment consciously, daily, to fortifying your inner foundation so you can adapt first and show others the way. Now, over these last few weeks, I've had the honor of talking to hundreds of my clients, whether they are the 20 men in the Great Man Mastermind, whether they are one-on-one with clients in the corporate world, whether they are the hundreds of people I had an opportunity to run webinars for over these last few weeks to do a temperature check on where people are. And at the beginning of every one of these webinars that I've run, which maybe 15 people at a minimum to 150 people at some of the larger ends, I asked them the same question every single time. And I asked them to put down one word in the chat box in the webinar. I say, what is the one word that best describes how you are feeling right now? And my chief operating officer, who's typically on those webinars, she will scrape all of those one-word descriptions and we grab them and we put them into a word cloud. And there's one word that shows up with more frequency than any other word on every single webinar I've conducted outside of the Great Man Mastermind. Those answers were very different. But the one word that came up over and over again is anxious. Every single webinar that I've done, anxious is the one word that comes up more than any other. And that word is buffered with other negative sentiments like overwhelm, frustration, fear, resentment, boredom, insecurity. 8 to 9 out of 10 words have a strong negative bend right now. Every so often someone will put blessed or optimistic or energized. But by and large, 8 or 9 out of 10 words have some sort of connection to a negative sentiment, which means that your family members or the people in your business or your clients are feeling a prevailing strong negative emotion right now. Which means there's an amazing opportunity for you to step up and help them elevate their mental and emotional and spiritual well-being. Not by telling them that they should feel anything different. Not by telling them that where they are is bad and they should have a more positive mindset, but by guiding them through your own state of being, by listening to them and asking if they would like to transform those feelings and to take just maybe one step up to whatever that next rung is of well-being. This is a tremendous opportunity for you to demonstrate leadership, provide value, and deepen your trust with them. 4 years ago today, I emerged from my 10 days of silent meditation, which was one of the most transformative experiences of my life. And I walked away from that experience a profoundly changed human being because at my DNA level, at my cellular level, I shifted into a deeper state of acceptance around what is. And what that means is that no matter the circumstance, whether it's the most painful of circumstances, scary of circumstances, I still feel the fear, I still feel the pain, but I don't feel the same level of resistance. I don't deny what is. When it comes to the coronavirus, what I've had an opportunity to see is that we are going through this mass grieving process right now as humans. And there's a beautiful model that was developed by Kubler-Ross called the 5 stages of grief. And someone, I forget exactly who modified it, but they expanded it to 7 stages of grief. And I just want to quickly run you through them because it's very potent right now. The 7 stages of grief, which is a modified model from Kubler-Ross, the first stage of grief is shock. Initial paralysis at hearing bad news. I believe many people are still in shock right now. The second stage is denial, trying to avoid the inevitable. Many of us, many of the people in your business, many of the people in your families, many of your clients are still in this stage of denial, which is why 8 or 9 out of 10 of these feelings are still negative sentiments. And to highlight this story, there is a beautiful, or to highlight this, I suppose, this stage of denial. One of my dear friends, a woman who I worked with for 15 years, her name is Stan Boyle. She works at Prudential, universally loved by pretty much everybody. 5 years ago, her daughter, Harper, who's I think 4 or 5 years of age at the time, was diagnosed with leukemia. And of course that broke Stan's heart because as a parent, there's nothing you fear worse than losing your child, the potential of. And Stan and her daughter Harper decided that they would undergo chemotherapy treatment. And what Stan told me when I spoke to her just a week ago, she said, Dominic, the first 30 days of Harper's chemotherapy were absolute torture. They were the worst. It was a multi-year process that we had to go through, but those first 30 days, I've never experienced such pain and torture in my life because I couldn't believe that Harper had to go through that pain. I couldn't accept the fact that my daughter, my beautiful daughter, this bright, shining soul, had to go through this experience, that she had to endure this pain, and she hadn't done anything wrong. What had she done to deserve this? Denial, resistance. Those first 30 days were torture. And something happened, and then anger as a result of that, right? And then something happened after that 30-day mark where something shifted and I accepted the reality. I don't know what I did, but I accepted that reality, and all of a sudden it became easier. Not easy, but it became easier so I could show up as a mother in my strongest sense of being, clear-minded, not putting my emotional weight or burden into the experience, and I was able to show up with Harper in a totally different way, and I was able to see her joy and her resiliency much more clearly because I wasn't denying or resisting the experience. And then a few years later, I think in 2017, Harper finished her last chemotherapy treatment and she was in remission. And she's a beautiful, happy, healthy little girl right now who has inspired so many people who have followed her story. And what happened for Stan, Harper's mother, was that after she went through that stage of shock and denial, and then this third stage, which is called anger, right? Anger, which is frustration and outpouring of bottled up emotion, which Stan expressed that she went through. And stage number 4 of the 7 stages of grief, which is bargaining, seeking in vain for any way out. This 5th stage, which was depression, a final realization of the inevitable, which was probably all of those experiences that Stan went through in those first 30 days. Shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then stages 6 and 7, which were testing and acceptance. Testing, which is seeking realistic solutions to this new normal, and acceptance, which is finally finding the way forward. Stan, after those 30 days, had figured out how to test the new ways of being and accepting this new reality, which she had to live for the years after that, she and her daughter Harper. And so for me, when I walked away from those 10 days in silence, I learned how to go through this stages of grieving much more quickly. I go through resistance and fear just like anyone. And I can look at this 7 stages of grief and I understand what it's like to go through shock. I certainly denied this for a period of time, not wanting to believe it was as serious as it was before I dropped into the experience and took the necessary precautions to make sure that my home was in order, my business was in order, my family was in order, my finances were in order, right? I was angry that all of the business that I had lined up for the following year, boom, just wiped away. Angry that that was lost. But once I was able to cycle through this process and adapt, and I adapted, I believe, fairly quickly, then I was able to step into a position of leadership so that I could help others drop into this experience and accelerate through their stages of grief and arrive at acceptance. So for you, as a man who is a leader, who is stepping into the greatest version of himself, where are you in those 7 stages? Shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, testing, or acceptance. And be honest with yourself. There's no shame if you're still in shock or denial. No shame whatsoever. You just need to be honest about it and get clear about where you are denying the new reality or what your unresolved anger is, and get clear with that. Leave space to connect with your emotions so you can move past anger into the higher stages of bargaining and maybe even dipping into depression before elevating into testing and acceptance. I just released 2 podcasts the previous 2 days about emotions, tapping into your emotions, welcoming your emotions, becoming the chairman of the board of directors of your emotions. So use those 2 episodes to help you get clear on where you are in these stages of grief so you can elevate and accelerate to this new way of being, so that once you drop into full acceptance of where we are, you, as a great leader, can inspire others to drop in, welcome this new way of being, and show up as powerfully as they possibly can. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode and you are not yet subscribed to this podcast, what are you doing? Hit the subscribe button, share this with a buddy, let him know that he needs to get in on this as well. Have him subscribe, and that way you can continue to do the inner work, not alone, but living with other great men beside you.